Thanks for coming out to the Zodiac Lounge, everybody. We've been, well, Sam started this how many years ago? Has this been the...
I think 4 years ago?
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after Sam started originally, and then I joined forces with him at some point in there, and then after a hiatus, we're now back here at the Birthday Present Space, which is a company that's owned by my wife, actually. They do childbirth education classes in here, so thank you to them for hosting us. And if you know anybody who's pregnant or thinking about being pregnant, wants to get childbirth ed classes, or wants to get a doula for their birth, which is a woman who helps you go through the labor process, they're great people to talk to, and their info is here. So definitely pass that around. And I think it's really appropriate that we have the Zodiac Lounge here in a place that's about childbirth, because of the importance that in astrology we give to the moment of your birth. The birth chart is probably popularly the thing that people know the most about astrology. Everybody knows that it's about your birth, that you can do a chart from your birth date, the time and place to be exact. But it's not just astrology where the importance of a moment is so crucial. And that's emphasized by the fact that here at the Zodiac Lounge we don't just have astrology happening, we have also tarot, and sometimes we'll have people doing other kinds of readings too. And it's, in general, we have a forum here for a field of activity that's called divination. And it's not just astrology, although astrology falls under that general category. But divination is an ancient field of activity that is probably just as old, if not older, probably, than religion and other belief systems for finding meaning in the universe. I don't think it's a big stretch of the imagination for us to think about what it would be like to go from a state of really just being concerned only about your survival on a day-to-day basis to actually thinking, why? And that question, I think, is the essence of how divination came into being. And astrology goes back as one of the original roots of that, because looking around in the world of changing seasons and changing weather and so on and so forth, the one thing that would prove to be constant in our environment was the rising and setting of the sun, the cycle of the moon, which would probably be the first thing that could be very easily mapped. That would be the lunation cycle, and then after that, one would notice the sidereal cycle of the moon, which is when it comes back to the same reference point against the stars. And then over time, people would notice what times of the year the stars would be heliacally rising before the sun. Like in the morning, the last star you see rise just before sunrise. You would see how at different times of the year that changes, and the correspondence with the seasons. And this was an entryway for the human race into divination. And in every culture, different approaches to divination have evolved. And in places like Sumeria, and Egypt, and China, and in India, and Mesoamerica, very distinct traditions of astrology evolved and then spread into different kind of manifestations as they grew. And there were also other systems of divination that arose. One of the oldest was the I Ching. We don't have anybody practicing here tonight, but it comes from ancient China and is associated with the Taoist philosophy. And in the I Ching, it's a very interesting, similar kind of parallel to what we have with tarot. And we do have two tarot readers here, Oson Yoyin and Chea, where it's a similar kind of idea, which is common across all the forms of divination. Tarot, I Ching, astrology, even if you go back to ancient Sumeria, things like dissecting the livers of sacrificial animals to look at how to interpret that. And that is this idea that the moment of something is really the most important. It's the key existential quality of now that we gain a connection to the divine inspiration from. When you think about it, it makes sense because the only thing that's real is now. The past is inherently contained in the now, but it is the past and is no more. Only the now is real, and the seeds of the future are contained in it. So everything comes right to this moment. And that would be why the significance of the moment of your birth, that first breath, would be so significant. And also why the significance of doing something like shuffling a deck of cards randomly, or dividing a pile of yarrow stalks, or flipping a coin, which is the way that the I Ching is cast. Why these activities would be significant and actually be a conduit for divination is simply because of the importance of now, the moment now. The other important part of the picture for divination is the relationship between the person who is asking the question and the person who is the medium, who understands the symbols and the archetypes and is there to be the interface between what the universal language of now is saying and what the person who has a question is coming, what their purpose is in asking. And all these things come together in this moment where there's a symbolic act. That act is shuffling a deck with the intention of the question that's on your mind, or dividing a pile of yarrow stalks, or asking a question of an astrologer. And so that's really, with divination in general, that's really what it's about. And it's kind of hard to say why it works, except that these symbols and these archetypes that we work with in whatever our field of divination is are very powerful. They come from ancient traditions. Nobody really knows who originated any of this stuff. There's a lot of theories, but it's so ancient that it even, like I said, it predates religion in most cases, I think. And these are timeless symbols and archetypes that we continue to work with and interpret for people. And I think it really is, I'd like to open it up for everybody's thoughts and questions, because maybe that'll help me get closer to getting to the place of finding the right kind of question to ask the universe about divination, and about how it really could be so that these symbols mediate through the power of this moment. How something like a random act, which would be shuffling a deck of cards, would produce reliably a tarot spread that would actually reveal with startling insight into your situation at hand. This is a central question about everybody's existence, I think. There is one solution that's been put forth to the question I just asked, which is the old maxim of astrology. It goes, as above, so below. And this is the idea that it's not just the sun out there that we're revolving around, and Venus out there, and Mars out there. But there's a Venus out there, and there's a Venus within. And that this is the source of the connection. And when we take it down to the level of the present moment and the infinite potential that's imbued in the constant now, I think that it is the case that as above, so below describes what is happening. But there's also something intermediate in between what's above and below that brings that understanding of knowledge into being. And that is the relationship between, that's the threefold relationship between the seeker of knowledge and the medium and the symbolic system that they're interpreting it through. So I guess this is all just food for thought for everybody to kick around, and maybe if anybody wants to talk.